Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Omnichannel with Dirk Abeel. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Don Davis. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. So with that, welcome, Dirk.
Thank you, Davis. Don, I always say, great
No
catching up
problem.
again. Great
Yeah.
catching up again with you.
Yeah, same here. So can you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself?
That's always a challenging question to talk about yourself. So, Dirk Abeel, and I always like to explain where my accent is coming from. Originally from Belgium, the Flemish-speaking side, and I started my career in Nestlé Belgium in the specialized nutrition business as a medical delegate or a sales rep, and then I did the whole parkour, sales management. I went into marketing. I had the pleasure to go then on what I call my biggest adventure and the University of Life to Africa. First in Central and Western Africa, where I was setting up a performance development structure, including an in-house built CRM system. Then from Central and Western Africa, I did the same for the whole of Africa. So building up a team also across the continent in performance development managers, working closely together with marketing, sales enablement, still at that moment, not so common terminology. Then I always like to say I was summoned to go to the headquarters in beautiful Switzerland at Lake Geneva in Vevey to head up the whole, let me call Salesforce excellence, field force excellence team globally. First Nestlé Infant Nutrition, but then after the acquisition of Wyatt, also including Wyatt Infant Nutrition. So really creating synergies without affecting the customer-facing kind of piece, keeping these two big brands separate. And then also, of course, we started to roll out a global CRM system, really looking into how important sales enablement is with all the pieces of the puzzle, because it's not only about systems and tools, it's also about skills, the proper objective setting. Then after a long period of time, because I spent a huge amount of time, I don't dare to say it at Nestlé Nutrition, I decided to leave end of 2018. I went to the other side across the canal to the United Kingdom to take up the role of a global medical sales director at Reckitt in the medical division. And also, again, focusing on this commercial excellence, Salesforce excellence. And that's, of course, where the whole omni-channel thing hit us frontally in the face when COVID came. We were just in the mid of rolling out the global CRM system. We had really to accelerate that by adding other channels, which really even further energized my desire and hunger to really better understand this whole omni-channel transformation, which already started before, and how we could drive that in really bringing value to the customers and their patients by really understanding what does it mean, value creation across all these touch points we were adding on. A very, very interesting journey. Then, and I fast forward, last year's August, I decided to quit, to close the corporate door behind me, to start my own business. And no surprise, focusing on really helping, especially health and life science industry, making this omni-channel transformation successfully. So really looking from a strategic perspective, go-to-market perspective, to an in-field execution, looking at, okay, what does it need from skills again and technology, and how do you measure success? And time goes fast. Beginning of this year, on top of that, I accepted a very interesting role as a global go-to-market lead at Pitcher, which is a sales enablement provider. So really allowing me to close this circle of omni-channel from a strategy perspective, execution perspective, sales enablement or platform perspective, all the data behind. So you cannot imagine, Don, how fascinating this is. And I hope you can see and hear that I didn't lose my passion. I would say even the contrary.
Yeah, I mean, I lots of enthusiasm for sure regarding all of it. I mean, it's I didn't pick up. So I know we talked before. We actually did a podcast with you early morning a few months back, but what I didn't pick up in that conversation was the the fact that you had been to Africa to start your career. So I mean, I missed that somehow in this journey, and I mean I mean, it's exciting from the standpoint of, you know, I grew up in the United States. Most people that I grew up with didn't leave the little place that we grew up in. And then, you know, I moved a lot in the United States and then also done, you know, different global roles. But I mean, Africa, you know, for sure sounds like it would have been an interesting first step for somebody from Belgium as
It
well.
it sounds exotic, and it was really exotic. And my family and friends said, "Hey, are you crazy? What are you going to do?" But I can
Mm,
tell you, and I really mean this. For me, that's what I really call the University of Life. That's what I learned. So many things which are important today: inclusion, diversity, uh, understanding cultures, learning to really lead different cultures, people with different expectations, different backgrounds. Wow, this has been really a big learning journey for me. And that's the reason why I said I was summoned to Switzerland, to the headquarters, because I wanted to stay. And I had already an agreement with the head for Africa to work in aligning the marketing strategies with the execution of the sales strategies. And that was really a dream for me. And then I had to go from warm, chaotic Africa to the very organized headquarters in Switzerland. So you can imagine the first year was for me a bit, what the heck did I do?
yeah, right. And I mean, you talked a lot about omnichannel, you know, in your journey as well. Can you just tell everybody a little bit about omnichannel, what it is, and kind of what it would mean for an organization that is going to deploy omnichannel?
Yeah. Let's first differentiate a bit two terminologies which are used quite in a mixed format. Multi-channel, it's saying it itself. You're doing specific activities through different channels. Often they are not connected with each other, so they are independently operating from each other. Which, when you really go to the omni-channel, it's creating about a seamless experience, and this word experience is very important for your dirty word target audience, your customers, based on an understanding about what is the purpose they want to interact with your organization and vice versa, at which time, through which kind of channels, and all of that in a seamless manner, in a nice sequence, so strengthening across all these touch points over time the same kind of message or the value proposition your customers, in our case the healthcare professionals, are looking for. So it sounds easy, but it's a whole orchestration piece that needs to happen, because and that's for me the key point where often people or companies fail is, we want to do omni-channel, often it's multi-channel, and we repeat what we did in the face-to-face world. So we were regurgitating information. Now we have many more channels, so hallelujah. It's not about that. It's really about thinking, what will be the value for each of the segments or micro segments of my customer base that I will bring to this channel of preference. And if you cannot answer that question, you should stay away from it, because if you cannot express the value you want to convey to your customer, how do you expect them to see and feel this value? So it's a lot more sensitive and a lot of dynamics which are happening in the background, hence the importance of having the right tools,
Mm,
platforms to leverage this, and also thinking about which kind of actionable insights should I generate for your, let me say, commercial organization, marketing and sales engagement teams, but also for your customer and what they're doing with their patients, giving them that same kind of service.
and you typically, in your description, you were describing omni-channel and then a CRM deployment. Is that normally how it happens? That, you know, there's a CRM being deployed, and then because of that, you know, maybe the sales strategy changes, or are there other things that kind of initiate it?
I would say, let's step back. It's a very interesting question, because it allows me to explain the importance of doing it in the right way and in the right sequence again. For me, the most critical part, first of all, is, as if we were in the pre-COVID time, is what are our branded solution strategies? What is the unique selling proposition we want to bring to our customer base? Who is our customer base? How do we understand them? Who are the stakeholders? And then to say, okay, that's all very nice, high level. How do we make this strategy actionable? So what is it you want to drive with that customer base? Once you understand who you want to talk with, and hopefully they want to talk with you, is to see, I give an example. We want to drive advocacy for our branded and unbranded solutions. How are you going to do that? So what does that mean? Why is it that someone is not believing in your solution? Do you understand why? Why do they prefer someone else? What is the difference when you have an advocate? Because we want, of course, HCPs to advocate first, because it results in prescriptions, recommendations, and all these nice dollars and euro signs which are coming behind. So that's critical. Then to look at which kind of services and content do we need to make that transition or conversion happening. So that's already a next step. That means that if I take two segments, persona, you're an analytical person and you do not believe in my solution, I will have to address you completely different, not only how I talk to you, but also the collaterals I'm going to use. If you don't believe in the solution, I don't have to start talking. The first thing I tell you is naming the brand you don't believe in. And right. I will have to be very factual. Mm-hmm. So if I go to the opposite side, obviously I can talk about the brand because you're advocating for it, and we can talk about a lot more other things and go a lot more granularly. So that's already very important to understand, because that means, and that's the challenge for marketing, is finding the whole and right metadata tagging strategy to allow technology then, based on, let me say, when you start working with machine learning and so on and so forth, that I can suggest what we call today next best of actions. You should use, with Professor Don Davis, you should use this content when you want to talk about this topic, because he's factual and he's a non-believer for that solution. Whereas for the other solution, he's still factual, of course, but he's an advocate. So that's how this whole thing is coming together. And only then you need to see, okay, this Dr. Davis, hopefully there are many in my group of customers, so I can segment them and have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different segments. Then I can start understanding what are the channels this segment is using to discuss with me. Face-to-face is one of them, obviously, but could be like we are doing through a video call, a Zoom meeting, could be over WhatsApp, but I need to understand this. Another purpose could be, hey, I want to educate myself. So I want to attend physical congresses on the Bahamas, if possible, physically. If that is not possible, right. It could be a webinar or e-learning. Other channels are popping in. You need to know that. And also more and more important is, hey, I want to have access to content which matters to me at any time, whenever I want, without having to rely on anything else. So there are, again, other channels are going to pop up. It could be corporate websites, could be third-party websites, it could be my personal, my microsite. So understanding that from a commercial, organizational, and IT perspective is critical, because then, only then, you can decide, okay, I know who I want to talk to. I know what I have to talk about. I know how I have to do it, what I need to use. I know the channels, so let's now focus on the technology. And of course, in the front-end facing part, CRM will be very important. But what we see shifting today is where you have the CRM and then you start plugging in all kind of other things. It stayed very monolithic. Today, the new approach is, and that's what we are seeing when I'm working with big organizations today, from a strategic perspective, but also from a picture perspective, is this best of breed approach. Okay, you have a solid core, but you plug in the most relevant application, which is ahead of the pack. And when something better comes in, either you develop it yourself or you co-develop it with your customers, you plug that in and you unplug something else. And that, of course, allows a lot of agility. So best of breed, agility, being nimble, and speed to market. And that are, I think, the game changers which we start seeing in this whole omnichannel transformation piece. Another important part is, and you need to stop me, Adon, because I can keep on going.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think it's important to cover. I think very, I think talking about, how this comes about is very important. So feel free.
Yeah. So I move further on this journey because then, of course, you also need to have the right people. I mean, so capability wise, do you have the right people? Do they have the right mindset? Do they understand why this whole transformation is happening? What is it in it for them? How is it impacting them? Where are they in this whole journey? Because when COVID hit, we've seen a lot of anxiety. Hey, is digital going to take over? Am I going to lose my job? Relevant questions, obviously. I think
Right.
that what the reality is today is it will neither be 100% face-to-face nor 100% digital. It will be this nice mix allowing to say, hey, my people resources are very expensive. They're also the most effective, so I use them best where they can impact in this whole value creation process, leading to a prescription if you're in certain medications or recommendations in OTC products and so on and so forth. So doing that whole change management, winning the hearts and the souls, the heart and the mind, sorry, is critical because often from an intellectual perspective, we understand what needs to happen. But we need also to reassure people to say, you will be part of this journey. We are doing this together and we will learn, fail, stand up again and move on forward together. So this whole capability perspective, the competencies, the skills, also very critical. Also, when you recruit new people, what do you do with people who cannot follow this journey? Where can you place them in the organization where they still can add value? And then, of course, when you start working on that, you have your technology, you have your strategy, you have your technology, you have the capabilities behind, you have the people behind. Then,
Yep.
okay, how are we now going to roll that out that makes sense at a certain speed, but also that we can learn? How is success looking like across this implementation journey? What are the learning points? And how do we really measure that properly so that everyone gets the insights at a different level in the organization? And I think, and we shouldn't forget that, is of course, how do we make sure that we also capture the customer, that they understand what this can bring for them when they're dealing with their patients, a kind of replicating best practices, because don't forget, HCPs are also human beings, no? And you have them from very young to 60, 70, 80 years old in certain geographies. So also there's a group who was very anxious about, hey, this digital thing, I cannot see my patients face to face anymore. What am I going to do? So our learnings from an organization, we really could also transfer that and project that into their reality to say, hey, this has been our pain, we can help you. And again, their technology, which should be quite out of the box, easy to use, despite being customized, should help and give them more comfort and certainty and confidence to tap and to step into that new kind of digital era, which for many of them was something quite new.
Yeah,
So
that customer journey. I mean, one of the things that that somebody recently said to me was that they do medical education. So they're supposed to be on site with the physician, with a medical device, and
yeah,
helping to educate them. And unfortunately, right now, a lot of physicians don't want them to come to the office. So it kind of interrupts that, the pathway normally. And I mean, whenever you talk about the age differences, again, I mean, it's, I at least don't have a problem, remote learning and, kind of, observing things through a camera, but I know there are people that do, and I know that certain people would struggle in terms of being able to grasp those things. So understanding those journeys is really important as well in this process.
fully agree. I want to tap into something you said. You said, unfortunately, now many of them don't want to go back to the old model where the face-to-face. I would say maybe fortunately. And the reason why I'm saying
Yeah.
that is, first, when COVID hit already, you saw it. Certain companies quickly got consent because there was a good relationship before. Those companies that were more transactional focused, they got a tough time in getting consent because they say, hey, now I am sitting in the, I can decide here. Before it was a bit more challenging because I run into your office. It's rude to say, no, I don't want to see you. But I can decline or accept I give you consent because it's happening remotely. You cannot hit me. I'm on a safe distance. So that was the first awakening, the mirror moment, like I like to call it for companies. How customer-centric have I been in the past?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, for me, they should kick companies out that are not bringing value, that are only wobbling and talking about what they find important without listening to what they really are looking for. So you see this kind of reshaping of this ecosystem where a lot of HCP say, yes, I still want to be informed as long as it is on my terms today about the content that I value, not you value, but I value, the content my patients value through the technology that I feel confident with. And by the way, let's look at Canada, let's look at Germany. Omnichannel is also fax. So if this is fax, let it be fax. It has to be email, let it be email. But again, how do you measure that this channel is relevant? Because we all know the famous story about the controlled emails, and you can see they have been sent to a cohort of 100 victims sometimes, and only 20% is opening them. So that's the first thing, only 20% is opening them. Why is that? Why? Maybe it's not a relevant channel, you don't even know. Or maybe the messaging is not appealing enough and not personalized enough. Opening a mail is like a doctor opening his consultation space to see who is out there. It becomes interesting when he says, hey, Dirk, come in. I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you have to say for me. Or to a patient, hey, let's do a diagnosis. That's click through. On a link, being on an email, being on social messaging, on a link, I say, okay, you've got my attention. I want to know more. I'm going to click and I want to see what is sitting there. How much time do I spend there? Do I flip through? Do I go back? Do I download? Do I share? That are all expressions of value creation. And that's where an organization needs to look at and learn from.
Yeah, and I mean, it all seems to start with, what problems do you solve, not necessarily what products are you offering, right? So
Yeah.
it's easy to fall into that trap of, I've got this to offer instead of I can help you solve this problem as well.
Yeah, even if they ask you, hey, do you have educational material, but don't give me anything branded? Yeah, you can decide as a company that's waste, or you say, no, that's valuable because I build trust. And on the longer term, that might be a much better model than saying, okay, bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, since, we met a few months ago, it seems like you've been on podcasts, you've been on panels, and, had different discussions about about Omnichannel with people at, different events. I'm just curious, overall, in terms of the experience that you've had from that, what are some of the key things that you've, spoken about at different events? And then I've got a follow-up question about, kind of, how things have shifted along your consulting career as well.
Yeah, I think that the topics are still quite the same. Is this whole, how do you really make omnichannel work? How do you really ingrain it, instill it in people's mind? First of all, across the whole organization, from the CEO to the sales rep, and again, bottom up and all the layers in between. What is the value creation you want to bring? So that's still, and on this journey, you find a lot of health and life sciences companies who are still at the start. Some are in the middle, some are more advanced. But I don't think that anyone really has done it 100% as it could and should be. So, and I think everyone is aware of that. And of course, that was partially due to what happened and the inheritance of the past. There was a technical and there was a technology, there was an IT platform, there was this and that. So yes, we have to deal with that. So we cannot change because it's too disruptive. So we need to bricolage and we need to put some things on it, try to customize and work. Building on your follow-up question already there a bit, is what you start seeing today is that big organizations now sometimes dare to kick out what they had before. Very disruptive, but to say, okay, it's not a full greenfield, but we will keep the pieces which were good and enhance them with what we think should be future proof. So that's something you start seeing happening quite recently, which is affecting the big kind of the big guys in the industry, which will push them also to reflect. Because before, if you have a monopoly, it's quite easy. Everyone has to follow you. There are a lot of contenders out there now, so which are eating on that cake. Another point is, what second challenge was, and where you start seeing progression, is too many different data sources in too many different formats. So I always like to say it, we're sitting on a pile of information, which should be gold, but often it's lead, because it cannot talk to each other. It only gives you partially kind of insights. Once you got that sorted out, then you could say, okay, now I have at least some let's say, descriptive data, which is still backward looking. What happened in the past? And a nice example for me is market share. We are so happy to get our market shares, but you're already 1 or 2 months behind. Once you could understand that and know where you want to go, then you could start saying, okay, let's look a bit more forward. Now we have quality data. They're sitting in the right format, in the right place. We have a data warehouse. We have a data lake. We know what we want to see at the different levels, from the territory level up to the global level, is to start doing what I call, already a bit going in advanced analytics, this more kind of predictive analytics based on what we've seen through machine learning, using machine learning, putting the right algorithms behind, based off what we've seen. This could be a logic next step. And to tell you, hey, Dom, with that kind of segment, why wouldn't you do this? That's even the next step. It's once you have your predictive model and it has been really solidified, proven to work properly, the education has happened, then you can go to what I would say more prescriptive kind of analytics, which are telling you, hey, Dirk, you should do that because you did that before and didn't work. Of course, me as a human being, I'm still the one who is deciding, can say, yeah, personal assistant, virtual assistant, doesn't matter. I know you, I hear you, but I will do it differently. And I will also explain later when I give my reports why I'm doing it differently. So machine learning, it's if you look at it, it's first of all the deep learning piece, which we had, then the machine learning on top, and then we go to the artificial intelligence, which is trying to mimic what people would do in such a situation based on everything we said before. So that's already forward looking. I don't think many health and life science companies are there. A lot of them are still sorting out to get proper quality data in one place. So to this descriptive kind of analytic, which is important, it's the cornerstone. Some are experimenting with machine learning, and very few already maybe with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it seems to me like at least a lot of the big medical device and big pharma companies that I've worked with, they have sales analytics teams that are working on providing the sales team some level of information and some level of structure for, you know, how they might approach things. I commonly don't hear, you know, this level of detail though, where they, you know, somebody's really thought through all of the personas and kind of all of the pathways and things like that. And that's where I think, you know, you for sure will have decades worth of work that you could do in this area, which should be good, right? Yeah, should be good for you. But also, you know, will be a nice evolution, I would think, for you know, for companies, because I mean, it's a you know, you mentioned me and kind of the sales process, and oftentimes, I mean, I find myself, you know, so many people just come straight in and say, hey, I've got something, you know, to offer you. And I mean, it's a quick way for me to just shut them down and you just say, hey, look, you know, this isn't something that I want to do. I'm much more of a relationship based person. And so let's start there and work our way back to, you know, what problems you can solve for me. And then we can have a conversation. So
fully agree. And that's what also in the tech world should be very well understood, because it's not about the technology. It's about, to your point, what is it helping me to sort out, which today is a pain point. And it can be from an effectiveness perspective or an efficiency perspective, it doesn't matter. In the space I'm now working with Pitcher, it's about sales enablement and data and so on and so forth. So that's the critical part to understand from what is it you want to drive. Then driving adoption, because it's one thing, hey, you signed a contract, there you go. No, then the work starts. Adoption. How
Right.
are people using it? Understanding why they're using it well, why they're not using it well, so that you can learn together with them. Because for me, in many companies and also in the tech, it's about what we call the ARR, the annual renewable revenue. For me, that's a byproduct of having done a good job. It's about customer satisfaction and customer experience, which automatically lead to customer
Right.
retention, which is leading to advocacy companies that are willing to talk about your solution because it is bringing what they were expecting or even beyond. And that will lead automatically to renewal of your usage and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if your ARR is dropping, I mean, you're already on the back of your heels, trying to figure out what's happening, right? I mean, it's kind of an unfortunate
Yeah.
end circumstance of the metric instead of, saying, hey, look, let's think a bit forward. What are other indicators that we could use that will tell us, hey, look, most likely the ARR is going to drop, and so that sort of customer buy-in would tell you that.
And
Yep.
if you have a good relationship and it's bringing value, then you can start thinking of upselling. I even say downselling. That's
Mm,
part of being customer centric, to say, hey, you've bought this, but we've seen you're not using it. So we understand why. Let's take it out. And you pay less. Yeah, tough thing to do for a sales guy, no? But that's what
yep.
is customer relationship building is about, and being recognized as what you want to be, and what we want is to be recognized as trusted solution partners. So
Yeah, not that it's really germane to this conversation, but I remember my cell phone provider calling me one time and saying, "Hey, look, it seems like you're paying too much. You're on this other contract. Can we convert you and lower your bill?" Well, we wouldn't leave them for the longest time because of because of that situation. Because hey, they lowered our bills once, so it was a nice situation for them. Um, in terms of applying this methodology for omni-channel, it for sure, I hear that it will work in larger organizations. What about a smaller organization that's maybe just getting started, or have you worked with anybody that's maybe smaller in the space that
yeah,
and where do they get started, I guess?
I think the most important is we've spoken about the importance of having the right data to understand, and when I say data, it should lead to actionable insights. Otherwise, for me, it's meaningless. You have data, but if you give me reports, but it's saying nothing for me, okay, let's forget about it. So it's first having that piece of the puzzle ready, and often it starts with having a good, solid CRM system where you put all your customer data in a uniform place, already thinking about the quality of your data. So being evangelistic about quality of data, avoid free text where it can, allow it where it's needed, work with drop down lists. So all this kind, setting up the basics for future growth. That's for me the first thing, because that's the goal of a good CRM. It's giving visibility about what is happening with the set strategies and its execution, at the condition, of course, that all people marketing, medical medical operations in the health and life science, and the medical reps are using it accordingly. So that's where I would start, making sure that everyone understands the importance of putting in the right data, giving value back, the what is in it for me factor, to all the users, because that will drive adoption. That will show them, hey, this system is there to help you. It's not Big
Mhm.
Brother. If you want to use it as Big Brother, okay, you could. That we could do in the past as well. So that's where definitely I would start, together with having a solid brand strategy, focusing on this new reality. We need to go where the customer is at the moments that matter. These different kind of channels. Do we have the right strategy? Do we know which kind of collaterals we need? Do we know which channels are the best? Do we know the timing, and so on and so forth? So taking sufficient time to prepare for the next step. And if you start from scratch, if you start from paper, yeah, when I was a medical delegate, we had still paper to write on. I bought an electronic type machine and I asked a job student to type my reports because my handwriting was illegible and my boss was furious. He
Mm.
barred all my files. So no, but it's critical to make sure it's looking at the maturity of your organization from a capability perspective and the people perspective and the tech perspective, and then to do step by step, and that will bring you a long way ahead. Don't
Yep.
get frustrated by the guys who are bragging about. There are companies that are doing it very, very well, but don't get frustrated. You have your own reality. And even in these companies where everything is going quite smooth, where the success stories they share on these big health and life science events, that's often for a very particular case in a particular market. In some other markets, they are still in the Stone Age, by manner of
Right.
speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, we all know that global models, kind of fall apart from a process perspective as you go around the world, mainly because we're all so very different, and that approach has to also be different. So there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. Dirk, what excites you?
What excites me? I could say omnichannel. Huh? No, what excites me is if I feel that I can impact on something positive, being it on people development, or in helping a company making a certain change, which is
Mm,
impactful. So creating impact, but not from a theoretical perspective, but rolling up. You see, I have short sleeves to go in the trenches together, working out together, feel the pain together, convince people, and then build a success together, but leaving an impact behind these that is there to stay, which is sustainable. That's something which is really exciting me.
very good. And what concerns you?
What concerns me? Yeah, today there are many things that could concern me if I look at the news. But let's stay positive. What concerns me is that people still like to stay in their own comfort zone
Mm,
because it's safer there. The outside world is dangerous in many aspects. That concerns me. The resilience sometimes, which I feel not willing to change. That's what also extinguished, not in the same. Like it's not a fair comparison. The dinosaur, for example, you need uh, not embracing change for me is painful to see because you know that you are lowering your opportunities to be successful in the future. So people should embrace change. And that's part of the journey we are taking to is to say, hey, don't be afraid of the change. I also get slapped in the face by change. But it's better to make it your friend and making it part of the way you think and live, because that will really help you overcome that fear.
yeah.
So I'll give it a
Yeah.
positive connotation again.
I mean, it it's such a great point. I mean, this idea of being uncomfortable. Um, there are plenty of things to be uncomfortable about, but at the same time, is that discomfort a part of your growth? And if you think of it in that light, instead of staying where you are, you're probably better off being uncomfortable for a little while to try
Yeah.
and sort out whether or not this is a part of your growth or not.
Agree with you. It's not about it works or not. It's having the courage to try it and to challenge it and to learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what inspires you?
What inspires me is people that really stick to their ideas, long-term vision, and going against odds, that keep on going. I could give some controversial names. I'm not going to do it, but really people that by having done that have transformed the world
Mm-hmm.
which we live, despite against all odds. I wanted to say, if you look what is happening, and then you already know a bit. It's not about the person itself, but what he has accomplished. If you look at what the revolution which happened in the automotive industry 5 years ago, people said, "Hey, now you have countries that took the decision by 25 in the Nordics, it will only be electric vehicles anymore, new vehicles that we will allow to be sold." So who would have expected that? So having a vision, having the courage, having setbacks, take them. It's coming back to what you said before. Huh? It's try, believe, keep going, and relentlessly pursuing that dream, which one day becomes a reality. And if I look back very far now, and I go 2,000 years back, since that moment, how many things have been realized that at that moment in time were said, hey, it's crazy, will never happen. It always happens. It always happens. And that's for me a very positive and optimistic kind of forward-looking vision that I want to embrace. There will always don't tell me ever it's not possible. Maybe
Yeah.
today it's not possible. It will become possible.
Yeah, even stuff that, I mean, could seem like a dream. I mean, you know, I've grown up, and as most likely have you, in this world of, you know, there was no internet before. I remember the first time I heard about the internet and seeing it as kind of like a big catalog of things. And then, you know, now to know that, I mean, things like this could happen, right? We could have an interview live, and it's being broadcast on two other, you know, locations at the same exact time that you and I are talking. To me, is just, I mean, who would have thought of that? But at the same time, from the innovator's perspective, to your other very good point, you know, those moments of self-doubt that they probably had, thank goodness they continued forward and didn't stop. And so, and I would say the same thing in healthcare. I mean, there's so many great innovations that are here, that are dreams that, you know, people, you know, are having to fight each and every day to try and keep alive. You know, I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that there are people that are out there that are doing that, as well as the salespeople or commercial people that are out there marketing and working through Omnichannel.
Fully agree. And it's not always comfortable, but that keeps us sharp, on the tip of our toes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Dirk Abeel, thank you so much for joining me today on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate your time and for spending time with me.
Don, now I can say you said Dirk Abeel, so Mr. Don Davis. It has been a great pleasure for me, and I hope we will have other opportunities to talk about other very interesting topics. So thank you very much also, and have a very nice day.
You're welcome.